26-year-old Debra Milke may become only the third woman ever to receive a death sentence in Arizona. Maricopa County Superior Court Judge Cheryl Hendrix is expected to sentence Milke tomorrow for the murder of her 4-year-old son, Christopher Milke. With us now is our private investigator and reporter Paul Hubel to tell us more about the case.
Yes, Dale. An unthinkable murder according to the motives offered by the prosecutor. The young victim was neither loved nor wanted by his mother. He was an inconvenience. The money from a $5,000 life insurance policy would solve some short-term financial problems. An infatuated gunman hoped to win the favor of the child's mother as a reward for killing this boy.
It was 13 months ago when little Christopher Milke was reported missing by his mother's roommate, James Stiers. Stiers fabricated a story telling police the boy disappeared after using a Metro Center Mall restroom.
We walked into Sears, went into the restroom there. When I came out of the stall at the restroom, Christopher was gone, and that was it.
Police questioned a boyhood friend of Stiers, Roger Scott. Scott confessed implicating both Stiers and Milke in the murder. He took police officers to this desert wash near 99th Avenue and Happy Valley Road. The boy's body was found in a fetal position with 3 gunshot wounds to the back of his head. Officers also found the murder weapon and a pair of sneakers allegedly worn by Stiers. Scott says he only drove the car and that Stiers was the triggerman. Stiers was tried, convicted, and sentenced to the gas chamber for his role. In court, however, Stiers testified that Scott was the triggerman and that he only made the phony missing report because Scott threatened to kill him if he didn't. Roger Scott's trial is now underway in another court and is expected to last several more weeks. News Center 10's John Kane and I talked with Milke for over an hour and a half in an exclusive Jailhouse interview.
Were you involved in any way, or did you give consent to the murder of your son, Christopher?
No.
Tomorrow night, we will show you this interview and hear Debra Milke's accusation that a Phoenix police detective made up the confession that was used against her in court.
Wasn't Milke's confession really the strongest evidence that was presented to the jury that convicted her?
That's right, Dale. Other than the confession, very little evidence was heard by the jury that linked Milke directly to this crime.
All right, fascinating story. Tragic case, too. Thanks, Paul. As we reported earlier, a Superior Court judge sentenced Debra Milke to the gas chamber. Our private investigator and reporter Paul Hubel continues his report now of an exclusive Jailhouse interview with Debra Milke.
News Center 10's John Kane and I interviewed Debra Milke at the Maricopa County Jail for more than an hour and a half. It's not the first time I've talked to Milke. I interviewed her less than 24 hours after her arrest. As she did in the earlier interview, Milke still denies any involvement in the murder of her son.
It's been more than a year since Debra Milke was put in jail for a crime she says she didn't commit. Her defense? She says Phoenix police detective Armando Saldate made up a confession he used against her in court. The confession was neither tape recorded nor written by Milke. Unfortunately, only the detective and Milke were present, and only they know what was said.
I think that before he even came down to Florence, you know, to get me, or whatever you want to call it, I believe that once he heard my name, because I was implicated by Roger, I think once he heard my name, and this involved a child, and then I was out of Phoenix, I think he knew immediately this would become a big story, you know, and I'm the arresting officer, and I'm gonna, you know, like some kind of hero.
Milke also refuted claims that she was an abusive mother.
It just amazes me how people can say that I was so abusive. Well, I was never reported. No one tried to take him away from me. You know, I did the best I could with what I had. And that's, I mean, I just did the best I could.
Milke detailed her divorce and custody proceedings with the boy's father, Mark Milke.
I wanted sole custody and restricted supervised visitation because Mark abused drugs and alcohol. I didn't strip him of his parental rights. I didn't care about money. All I wanted was to make sure Christopher was, you know, protected, legally.
She explained her reasons for not searching for Christopher when he was missing.
when I talked to Jim, he said, I'm here and there's people here looking, and the security guards were there. And then I didn't have a way to get there. That's why I stayed home. The police officers were there. They told me that I needed to be with my family, and I told them my family lives out of Phoenix. And they said that my phone was tapped, so if they heard anything, I'd be the first to know. So that someone volunteered to stay at my apartment and listen for my phone so I could go be with my family. And I left them my dad's name and address and phone number. And I told them, if you have anything, if you've heard anything or need to get a hold of me, this is where I'll be. And we left, and it was okay. It's not like I just ran.
Milke described the two tragedies in her life.
It's really hard to explain to people what I go through when someone hasn't been through this. I don't have just one tragedy, I have two, you know. And the first one is the loss of Christopher, and the second one is being charged and going through this legal stuff and being convicted of it on top of it.
Now, her hopes are in the appeal process.
The only thing really that I have left to hang on to is the higher court, the Court of Appeals, and I don't just have one time. I have more, you know, or the Supreme Court. I feel really positive and optimistic about it.
We requested an interview with Armando Saldate, who now works as a Justice Court constable. Although he declined an on-camera interview, he did say that he stands by his testimony that he expects Milke to lie in order to save her own neck.
Is it normal police procedure to interview a murder suspect without the use of a tape recorder?
No, Dale. Confessions are often obtained in writing or are tape recorded by police. Another alternative is for more than one officer to be present as a witness. None of these things were done here. It's very interesting that in the confession given earlier the same day by fellow defendant Roger Scott, police tape recorded his statements. Why that wasn't done with Milke, I'm not sure that I know.
Certainly does raise some interesting questions as to why not. Thank you, Paul. Interesting story.